That question was one of the issues that was supposed to be determined because what David Ochieng that day said, and which I identify with, is that we've had glitch, setback, a hitch in our political system, but not catastrophic enough to warrant some drastic reduction. And let me just share, maybe the Parliamentary Budget Office can also shed light. Yes, the finance bill didn't go through, but by default, the finance bill of 2023-2024 is enforced. The collectible revenues of the government of Kenya the trajectory has always been better and better and better every year. So we have not had a situation of projection where we are projected to collect less revenue than what we collected using the finance bill of 2023-2024. If that is the case, then is it sincerely justified that the revenues allocated as per the projected collection of finance bill of 2023-2024 of 385 to county government is reduced below even 385? And then that becomes the point is how catastrophic is the situation? You know, we are all talking about this situation is extraordinary. I don't view the situation we suffered as that catastrophic or extraordinary. I share the same view as David Ochieng that we've suffered some short setback, a political glitch, maybe unprecedented because we've not had a similar issue that has given rise to quite a lot of changes. But the analysis we want to say is, sincerely speaking, you know, how catastrophic was our revenue situation on the basis of the events that preceded to the rejection of the Finance Bill 2024-2025. And I would like Parliamentary Budget Office to maybe shed some light, honestly speaking, so that we're able to rationalize what is before us. Over to you, Lucy.
Follows as required under Article 218, the advice or opinion from the Supreme Court.
Our legal team, please answer all the questions that preceded, and then eventually the Parliamentary Budget Office answer the last question I asked. The legal team, please respond to those questions. You want to add one?
Yeah, maybe, Co-Chair, actually what I wanted to say is the question of asked is very important because it's the issue of projected revenue versus actual. And I can tell you for sure since the start of, since we became independence, if you analyze it for the last 10 years, we've never collected as projected. There is always a shortfall. And that's why I want Ruth to take us through the actual figures so that you can see even this projected of 346, which was projected in the finance bill, we are questioning how realistic it was. Because already that time we were talking about 300 shortfall, E23 finance bill, about 300 billion shortfall. But Lucy will give us the actual figures.
The last question, so we give them the time to answer.
Senator, from what you had asked on the equitable share, you said the county equitable share was 385 on the previous year. Now we're suggesting 380. I just wanted to ask the Budget Office what actually made them think that from 385 to this 380. What drive? Yes.
Okay. Now, honorable members, let's allow the legal team to answer. And I think Lucy, you can start. Jemima, you can. Nasid, you know, I say I love the law. So, and then thereafter, maybe Lucy, Parliamentary Budget Office can answer.
Chair, the supplementary appropriation was assented to on 5th, passed on 31st July 2024 and assented to on 5th August 2024. The Division of Revenue Amendment Bill was published on 17th July 2024, passed by the National Assembly on 7th August 2024, and passed by the Senate with amendments on 16th October 2024. So,
of events as required under the Constitution, was it followed or it was flouted? Also, was it
Chair, the ID. Sorry.
Jemima, please answer whether the sequence is followed.
From the National Assembly perspective, when we went to the Mediation Committee, the sequence was followed. The Supplementary Appropriation Number 2 Bill 2024, as Lucy has said, was assented to on 5th of August 2024. And the National Assembly did, you look at the timeline, on 7th of August 2024, passed the Division of Revenue. When there were budget cuts, my chair had to move to ensure that all these budget cuts are effective, not just to the county governments, but the national government as well, and no other state departments. So that's why we passed the supplementary on 5th of August. Thereafter, we passed the Division of Revenue in respect of the county equitable share of revenue. Yes.
Okay, Lucy, you can add on, and then Lucy, Parliamentary Budget Office can take over.
Chair, as we observed when we started the meeting, and this will also answer the question that Honorable Kiplagat had asked me on what the weight of an advisory opinion. So I'll tackle them both. That if you look at the argument, the position of the court in Advisory 3 of 2019, it is clear to them that there must not be an absurdity in the way you process legal instruments that affect the budget process. The Division of Revenue Act was already in place. Any subsequent amendments to the Appropriation Act touching on the allocation to county governments should have been effected after the passage of an amendment to the Division of Revenue Act that was in force, Chair. So that would be my comment on the sequence of events. And then secondly, Chair, on the weight of an advisory opinion, I can continue.
Yes.
On the weight of an advisory opinion, Chair, in a landmark case, re-IIEC, we will get the full judgments for the members' files after the meeting. The court found that the system of advisory opinions in this country are such that an advisory opinion is binding in nature. It is different, of course, from an ordinary judgment given before other lower courts, but it is binding in nature. And the reason why advisory opinions are given is to give further clarification on interpretation of the law, so that what the court says is not merely a suggestion. And to draw an analogy, Chair, the reason why we process even the Division of Revenue Bill in both houses of Parliament is pursuant to the findings of Advisory Opinion Number 2 of 2013, which marks also a landmark case with purposes of parliamentary procedures. So the pronouncements that were made in Advisory Opinion Number 3 of 2019...
Senior Counsel, please don't go. I want to help a little bit with Senator Faki immediately after her. Then you can... I will give you just 2 minutes to share something. Yeah.
So, Chair, the pronouncements in the advisory opinion are not merely just suggestions or directions, but they are to point us to the right way to process these legislative instruments.
Now, Senior Counsel, I just want to weigh in from strictly the position of law in terms of what was asked by Kiplagat and the answers given by our true legal team. What's your take? And then I will also want Faki to help, because you are the legal minds in the team. Over to you.
Well, obviously, Chair, as you had said, and I think the lawyers also said, in law there's no strict answer to anything until and unless the court has given that answer. and that includes even when the court itself is wrong. But we find ourselves in unprecedented waters for the reasons I'd stated. And there are two ways of doing this. One way is to take the literal and easy route, I think, as a committee. And I think when Ndindi Nyoro alluded to this, we can, agree and say, okay, we go with the 400, or we reduce it slightly to like 390 or whatever, or 395 for argument's sake. That route becomes very easy if the Houses of Parliament are persuaded and we get the numbers. But if they're not persuaded, it becomes a very tricky route. I think it would have legal landmines. And I think it would be the easier route for this committee. But it would be reckless of this committee to take that route unless we are sure that we'll get the numbers. That's my take. Okay? So I think it behoves us to take the more difficult task so that once we are agreed, then it's our collective responsibility to persuade the House to go with us. Otherwise, we'll be in dereliction of duty. That's all I want to say on that right now. But secondly, in terms of... that's without a question, and the legal counsel answered it. Advisory opinions are actually binding on the entities to which it's addressed. The only check has usually been that the court will not give an advisory opinion if there's an active litigation on the matter, even if that litigation is at a lower court. But if there's none, and the advisory opinion is given, then it is binding. But as I pointed out earlier, is where we are is the unique situation where the advisory opinion now meets an unprecedented situation. That is the situation, rightly or wrongly, and we can debate that, where there's a veto by the president. And I've expressed my view before that the way we practice presidential veto in this country, in effect, gives the president the power to make law. It was not contemplated, but that's how it works. So the only way to defeat it is for the House to be so united that you get 2/3. So far, we have not succeeded on that on any legislation since 2010. And that's why it requires some unprecedented level of consensus, to defeat that. If we were to do that, it becomes quite easy, because then we can, look, all we have to do is do this. Balance out what Dr. Makali Mulu said with what my friend, the Senator for Kisi said. Look, we want money to the counties. It's 15%. But there's the reality. So all we'll be debating is, where do we strike that balance? But when we do that, we must also be sure that our reasoning will carry the House for the numbers. That's my interpretation. Allow me to leave. Thank you.
Can now leave. No, thank you very much, Senator Paki. Just weigh in on the basis of the issues that were just shared.
Chair, I think the problem started when National Assembly, when the National Assembly passed the Appropriations Act without reference to DORA. That's where the rain started beating us. Yeah. And if you look at the consequence of events, the sequence of events that was explained by both councils, it is quite clear that they had no regard to DORA at the time they were passing the Appropriation Act. In fact, from my knowledge, when DORA the amendment was read in the first time, and were informed about it in the House Business Committee, we raised the issue that they cannot now seek to amend CARA before amending DORA. That's now when they then brought DORA amendments to the House. The advisory opinion is binding, and until it is swallowed, we shall still maintain it. It is still binding on us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lucy, Parliamentary Budget Office.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, in the last meeting, the Parliamentary Budget Office was asked to prepare some briefs, and one of the one of the major area that we were to prepare a brief on was on the ordinary revenue performance against the projected revenue for the last 10 years. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, we can now present that because it will answer the question as asked by Dr. Honorable Mulu. So that we present the brief as answering that question and also the other issues that the committee had asked that we make a presentation on.
Proceed, please.
With that, Mr. Chairman, I will ask my colleague Regina to make the presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, co-chairs. I'll go straight to the brief. I'm sure that it has been given to the members. Yes, it's titled the brief on key issues raised by the honorable members during the first sitting of the Mediation Committee on the Division of Revenue. So the bill is being circulated. Honorable members, as it has been indicated during that meeting, the committee required the Parliamentary Budget Office to prepare a brief on the following issues. 1, ordinary revenue performance against the projected revenues for the last 10 years. 2, the county government's own source revenue performance over the last 10 years. 3, details of the 346 billion shortfall and how it was apportioned between the national and the county governments and the national government programs affected by the shortfall. And 4, the counties with ongoing county aggregation industrial parks and expenditures incurred by national and county governments. On to the first issue on the review of the ordinary revenue performance. Honorable members, you will note that ordinary revenue performance and also the total revenue has declined over time, over the last 10 years, as a share of GDP, as presented in Figure 1, the graph that indicates that the ordinary revenue as a share of GDP has declined from 18.2% in 2013-14 to about 14.2% in 2023-2024. Notably is that the downward trend reveals some consistent structural and economic challenges in growing revenue relative to the economic output. Bullet number 3 on the issue of revenue performance vis-a-vis the shortfalls. There is an Annex 1 which has been, which I hope has been circulated to members, titled 10 years revenue performance in Kenya shillings millions. It has a number of pages that indicates the target for that specific financial year, the actual for that financial year, and the difference or the shortfall for that financial year. So the shortfalls are the figures that are indicated in red. And as it can be seen that over the years, there have been revenue shortfalls since 2013 to the last financial year. And more specifically, looking at the figures for the last financial year in terms of the last page of that document, we realize that the shortfall in terms of the total revenue was 204 billion. In terms of ordinary revenue was 171 billion. And the breakdown for the income tax, 50 billion, VAT, 9.2 billion, import duty, 8.4 billion, excise duties, 12.56 billion, other revenue categories, a shortfall of 90.5 billion, and the appropriations in aid and a shortfall of 32 billion, which totals to the overall shortfall for the last financial year amounting to 204 billion. So this is a trend which has been observed over the years, and back to the brief in point number 4, we are not think that following the 2025, where we have the various revenue categories and how they have performed over that time, both in absolute figures and as a share of GDP, and also key expenditures and how they have performed. That's the recurrent expenditures, the development expenditures, the equalization fund, and the county transfers to, the county transfers. That is in table 1. I hope we are together, honored members. Bullet number 5 is on the second issue, which had been raised that on average, counties have achieved 67% first year of counties also have had the similar issue with the national government when it comes to revenue performance compared to the targets. So ideally, we are noting that on average, counties have achieved 67% of the targets, save for the first year of devolution, 2013-14, where the counties had over-projected their own source revenue, not indicating, which was a huge gap that resulted in low performance, which could have been partly attributed to the challenges in setting up revenue collection systems at the beginning of devolution. So in terms of actual performance or targets of actual and deviations of the county-owned source revenues, we have the other Annex 2, which has also been circulated to honorable members, that indicates the targets, the actual, and the deviation by county. So again, looking at the last, the performance of the last financial year, is that the counties had a shortfall of about 21.9 billion in terms of revenue shortfalls from the own source revenues. So that's what we have noted in terms of the own source revenues. The issue number 3 that had been raised is on the implications of the withdrawal of the finance bill. that were also factored. That gives us the overall budget that was approved at 3.88 trillion. The issue, I think, the issue raised in bullet number 9 of carryovers, I think I have raised them in that table, and I will take members to the table 2 after bullet number 10 that provides a brief overview of the shortfall and how it has been incurred. And as we have seen from that budget summary, we have seen a reduction in development expenditure of 34 billion. This should be reduction in recurrent expenditure of 34 billion and 40 billion. Then reduction in development of 122 billion, and whatever was approved by the National Assembly was 105 billion. Reduction in equitable share of 20 billion, and the difference from the reduction in expenditures was funded through increased borrowing or deficit financing of the 171 billion. So that breakdown gives us the total for the shortfall as indicated. Paragraph number 11 basically notes how the additional deficit financing will be funded, and this was to be funded through an additional 21 billion from domestic external borrowing and an additional 150 billion from domestic borrowing. In terms of the areas affected by the reductions in recurrent and development expenditures for the national government, I will invite members to table number 3 that provides a full list of all the areas affected in terms of development expenditure, totaling to the 105 billion, and table number 4 that follows, totaling all the areas in terms of recurrent expenditures that had been affected during that process, totaling to 40.5 billion. To the last issue that the committee requested in terms of the county aggregation industrial parks, I will invite members to bullet number 13 of our brief, where we note that this is a national government project under the bottom-up economic transformation agenda that was supposed to be implemented in all the 47 counties by the financial year 25-26, and it was supposed to be implemented in phases. The overall cost of an industrial park is 500 million, and the national government was supposed to provide 250 million, and the county government, each county government to provide the counterpart of 250 million. Honorable members, table 5 indicates how initially they had been structured to take shape. The counties that were supposed to be supported in 2023-24, 2024-25, then 2025-2026. However, according to the State Department for Industry, there have been issues in disbursement, and the first disbursement for this was done in May 2024. For where each of the counties in the first column for 23-24 received 62.5 million each, and the second disbursement was done on July of 2024 of 1.5 million each. So overall, the national government has disbursed 2.2 billion, with each county having benefited with 116.6 million against the expected 250 million. That information is broken down in table 6, indicating the disbursement in the first column for 23-24 received 62.5 million each, and the second disbursement was done on July of 2024 of 1.5 million each. So overall, the national government has disbursed 2.2 billion, with each county having benefited with 16.6 million against the expected 250 million. That information is broken down in Table 6, indicating the disbursement. Has disbursed 2.2 billion, with each county having benefited with 16.6 million against the expected 250 million. That information is broken down in Table 6, indicating the disbursement